Chapter 1. The Nature of Anger. Anger is an emotional state that varies in intensity from mild irritation to intense fury and rage, according to a psychologist who specializes in the study of anger. Like other emotions, it is accompanied by physiological and biological changes. When you get angry, your heart rate and blood pressure go up, as do the levels of your energy hormones, adrenaline, and noradrenaline. Anger can be caused by both external and internal events. You could be angry at a specific person, such as a coworker or supervisor, event, a traffic jam, a canceled flight, or your anger could be caused by worrying or brooding about your personal problems. Memories of traumatic or enraging events can also trigger angry feelings. Expressing anger. The instinctive, natural way to express anger is to respond aggressively. Anger is a natural, adaptive response to threats. It inspires powerful, often aggressive feelings and behaviors which allow us to fight and to defend ourselves when we are attacked. A certain amount of anger, therefore, is necessary to our survival. On the other hand, we can't physically lash out at every person or object that irritates or annoys us. Laws, social norms, and common sense place limits on how far our anger can take us. People use a variety of both conscious and unconscious processes to deal with their angry feelings. The three main approaches are expressing, suppressing, and calming. Expressing your angry feelings in an assertive, not aggressive manner is the healthiest way to express anger. To do this, you have to learn how to make clear what your needs are and how to get them met without hurting others. Being assertive doesn't mean being pushy or demanding, it means being respectful of yourself and others. Anger can be suppressed and then converted or redirected. This happens when you hold in your anger, stop thinking about it, and focus on something positive. The aim is to inhibit or suppress your anger and convert it into more constructive behavior. The danger in this type of response is that if it isn't allowed outward expression, your anger can turn inward on yourself. Anger turned inward can cause hypertension, high blood pressure, or depression. Unexpressed anger can create other problems. It can lead to pathological expressions of anger, such as passive-aggressive behavior, getting back at people indirectly without telling them why rather than confronting them head-on, or a personality that seems perpetually cynical and hostile. People who are constantly putting others down, criticizing everything, and making cynical comments haven't learned how to constructively express their anger. Not surprisingly, they aren't likely to have many successful relationships. Finally, you can calm down inside. This means not just controlling your outward behavior, but also controlling your internal responses, taking steps to lower your heart rate, calm yourself down, and let the feeling subside. When you are upset, mad, or furious, you should respond to your anger, not react. A response is an action based on logic. A reaction is an emotional state without logic. Strategies to keep anger at bay. Anger can be caused by internal and external events. You might feel mad at a person, an entity like the company you work for, or an event like a traffic jam or a political election. Wherever the feelings come from, you don't have to let your anger get the better of you. Here are some techniques to help you stay calm. Check yourself. It's hard to make smart choices when you're in the grips of a powerful negative emotion. Rather than trying to talk yourself down from a cliff, avoid climbing it in the first place. Try to identify warning signs that you're starting to get annoyed. When you recognize the signs, step away from the situation or try relaxation techniques to prevent your irritation from escalating. Don't dwell. Some people have a tendency to keep rehashing the incident that made them mad. That's an unproductive strategy, especially if you have already resolved the issue that angered you in the first place. Instead, try to let go of the past incident. One way to do that is to focus on things you appreciate about the person or the situation that made you angry. Change the way you think. When you're angry, it's easy to feel like things are worse than they really are. Through a technique known as cognitive restructuring, you can replace unhelpful negative thoughts with more reasonable ones. Instead of thinking, everything is ruined, for example, tell yourself, this is frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. Try these strategies to reframe your thinking. Avoid words like never or always when talking about yourself or others. Statements like, this never works, or you're always forgetting things, make you feel your anger is justified. Such statements also alienate people who might otherwise be willing to work with you on a solution. Use logic. Even when it's justified, anger can quickly become irrational. Remind yourself that the world is not out to get you. Do this each time you start feeling angry, and you'll get a more balanced perspective. Translate expectations into desires. Angry people tend to demand things, whether it's fairness, appreciation, agreement, or willingness to do things their way. Try to change your demands into requests. And if things don't go your way, try not to let your disappointment turn into anger. Relax. Simple relaxation strategies, such as deep breathing and relaxing imagery, can help soothe angry feelings. If you practice one or more of these strategies often, it will be easier to apply them when angry feelings strike. Focused breathing. Shallow breathing is angry breathing. Practice taking controlled, slow breaths that you picture coming up from your belly rather than your chest. Use imagery. Visualize a relaxing experience from your memory or your imagination. Progressive muscle relaxation. With this technique, you slowly tense, then relax each muscle group one at a time. For example, you might start with your toes and slowly work your way up to your head and neck. Improve your communication skills. People often jump to conclusions when they're angry, and they can say the first, often unkind thing that pops into their heads. Try to stop and listen before reacting. Then take time to think carefully about how you want to reply. If you need to step away to cool down before continuing the conversation, make a promise to come back later to finish the discussion. Get active. Regular physical exercise can help you decompress, burn off extra tension, and reduce stress that can fuel angry outbursts. Recognize and avoid your triggers. Give some thought to the things that make you mad. If you know you always get angry driving downtown at rush hour, take the bus or try to adjust your schedule to make the trip at a less busy time. If you always argue with your spouse at night, avoid bringing up contentious topics when you're both tired. If you're constantly annoyed that your child hasn't cleaned his room, shut the door so you don't have to look at the mess. You can't completely eliminate angry feelings, but you can make changes to the way those events affect you and the ways in which you respond. By making the effort to keep your anger in check, you and the people close to you will be happier for the long run. Relaxation. Simple relaxation tools, such as deep breathing and relaxing imagery, can help calm down angry feelings. There are books and courses that can teach you relaxation techniques, and once you learn the techniques, you can call upon them in any situation. If you are involved in a relationship where both partners are hot-tempered, it might be a good idea for both of you to learn these techniques. Some simple steps you can try. Breathe deeply from your diaphragm. Breathing from your chest won't relax you. Picture your breath coming up from your gut. Slowly repeat a calm word or phrase such as relax, take it easy. Repeat it to yourself while breathing deeply. Use imagery. Visualize a relaxing experience. from either your memory or your imagination. No strenuous. Slow yoga-like exercises can relax your muscles and make you feel much calmer. Cognitive restructuring. Simply put, this means changing the way you think. Angry people tend to curse, swear, or speak in highly colorful terms that reflect their inner thoughts. When you're angry, your thinking can get very exaggerated and overly dramatic. Try replacing these thoughts with more rational ones. For instance, instead of telling yourself, "Oh, it's awful, it's terrible, everything's ruined," tell yourself, "It's frustrating, and it's understandable that I'm upset about it, but it's not the end of the world, and getting angry is not going to fix it anyhow." Be careful of words like never or always when talking about yourself or someone else. "This darn machine never works," or "You're always forgetting things," are not just inaccurate, but they also serve to make you feel that your anger is justified and that there's no way to solve the problem. They also alienate and humiliate people who might otherwise be willing to work with you on a solution. Remind yourself that getting angry is not going to fix anything, and it won't make you feel better. It may actually make you feel worse. Logic defeats anger, because anger, even when it's justified, can quickly become irrational. So use cold, hard logic on yourself. Remind yourself that the world is not out to get you. You're just experiencing some of the rough spots of daily life. Do this each time when you feel that anger is getting the best of you, and it'll help you get a more balanced perspective. Angry people tend to demand things: fairness, appreciation, agreement, willingness to do things their way. Everyone wants these things, and we're all hurt and disappointed when we don't get them. But angry people demand them, and when their demands aren't met, their disappointment becomes anger. As part of their cognitive restructuring, angry people need to become aware of their demanding nature and translate their expectations into desires. In other words, saying, "I would like" something is healthier than saying, "I demand" or "I must have" something. When you're unable to get what you want, you will experience the normal reactions: frustration, disappointment, hurt, but not anger. Some angry people use this anger as a way to avoid feeling hurt, but that doesn't mean the hurt goes away. Problem solving. Sometimes our anger and frustration are caused by very real and inescapable problems in our lives. Not all anger is misplaced, and often it's a healthy, natural response to these difficulties. There is also a cultural belief that every problem has a solution, and it adds to our frustration to find out that this isn't always the case. The best attitude to bring to such a situation is not to focus on finding the solution, but rather on how you handle and face the problem. Make a plan and check your progress along the way. Resolve to give it your best, but also not to punish yourself if an answer doesn't come right away. If you can approach it with your best intentions and efforts, and make a serious attempt to face it head-on, you will be less likely to lose patience and fall into an all-or-nothing thinking, even if the problem does not get solved right away. Better communication. Angry people tend to jump to and act on conclusions, and some of those conclusions can be very inaccurate. The first thing to do if you're in a heated discussion is slow down and think through your responses. Don't say the first thing that comes into your head, but slow down and think carefully about what you want to say. At the same time, listen carefully to what the other person is saying and take your time before answering. Listen to what is underlying the anger. For instance, you like a certain amount of freedom and personal space, and your significant other wants more connection and closeness. If he or she starts complaining about your activities, don't retaliate by painting your partner as a jailer, a warden, or an albatross around your neck. It's natural to get defensive when you're criticized, but don't fight back. Instead, listen to what's underlying the words, the message that this person might feel neglected and unloved. It may take a lot of patient questioning on your part, and it may require some breathing space. But don't let your anger, or partners, let a discussion spin out of control. Keeping your cool can keep the situation from becoming a disastrous one. Using humor. Silly humor can help diffuse rage in a number of ways. For one thing, it can help you get a more balanced perspective. When you get angry and call someone a name or refer to them in some imaginative phrase, stop and picture what the word would literally look like. If you're at work and you think of a coworker as a dirtbag or a single-cell life form, for example, picture a large bag of dirt sitting on your colleague's desk, talking on the phone, going to meetings. Do this whenever a name comes into your head about another person. If you can, draw a picture of what the actual thing might look like. This will take a lot of the edge off your fury, and humor can always be relied on to help on not a tense situation. Angry people tend to feel that they are morally right, that any blocking or changing of their plans is an unbearable indignity, and that they should not have to suffer this way. Maybe other people do, but not them. When you feel that urge, I suggest picture yourself as a god or goddess, a supreme ruler, who owns the streets and stores and office space, striding alone and having your way in all situations while others defer to you. The more detail you can get into your imaginary scenes, the more chances you have to realize that maybe you are being unreasonable. You'll also realize how unimportant the things you're angry about really are. There are 2 cautions in using humor. First, don't try to just laugh off your problems. Rather, use humor to help yourself face them more constructively. Second, don't give in to harsh, sarcastic humor. That's just another form of unhealthy anger expression. What these techniques have in common is a refusal to take yourself too seriously. Anger is a serious emotion, but it's often accompanied by ideas that, if examined, can make you laugh. Changing your environment. Sometimes it's our immediate surroundings that give us cause for irritation and fury. Problems and responsibilities can weigh on you and make you feel angry at the trap you seem to have fallen into, and all the people and things that form that trap. Give yourself a break. Make sure you have some personal time scheduled for the times of the day that you know are particularly stressful. One example is the working mother who has a standing rule that when she comes home from work, for the first 15 minutes, nobody talks to mom unless the house is on fire. After this brief quiet time, she feels better prepared to handle demands from her kids without blowing up at them. Some other tips for easing up on yourself. Timing. If you and your spouse tend to fight when you discuss things at night, perhaps you're tired or distracted, or maybe it's just habit. Try changing the times when you talk about important matters so these talks don't turn into arguments. Avoidance. If your child's chaotic room makes you furious every time you walk by it, shut the door. Don't say, "Well, my child should clean up the room so I won't have to be angry." That's not the point. The point is to keep yourself calm. Finding alternatives. If your daily commute through traffic leaves you in a state of rage and frustration, give yourself a project. Learn or map out a different route, one that's less congested or more scenic. Or find another alternative, such as a bus or a commuter train. Practice these techniques daily. Learn to use them automatically when you're in a tense situation. Chapter 2. Understanding Anger. Anger can take different forms. Some people feel angry most of the time, or can't stop dwelling on an event that made them mad. Others get angry less often, but when they do, it comes out as an explosive outburst of rage. Whatever shape it takes, uncontrolled anger can negatively affect physical health and emotional well-being. Research shows that anger and hostility can increase people's chances of developing coronary heart disease and lead to worse outcomes in people who already have heart disease. Anger can also lead to stress-related problems including insomnia, digestive problems, and headaches. Anger can also contribute to violent and risky behaviors, including drug and alcohol use. And on top of all that, anger can significantly damage relationships with family, friends, and colleagues. Anger can be triggered by feelings, people, events, situations, or memories. You may feel angry when you worry about conflicts at home. A bossy coworker or traffic may make you angry. When you feel anger, your blood pressure and heart rate go up. Certain hormone levels increase, causing a burst of energy. This allows us to react aggressively when we feel threatened. There are always going to be things in life that make you angry. The problem is that lashing out is not a good way to react most of the time. You have little or no control over the things that cause your anger, but you can learn to control your reaction. Who needs anger management? Some people seem to be more prone to anger. Others may have grown up in a household full of anger and threats. Excess anger causes problems for both you and the people around you. Being angry all of the time pushes people away. It can also be bad for your heart and cause stomach problems, trouble sleeping, and headaches. You may need help controlling your anger if you often get into arguments that spin out of control. Become violent or break things when angry. Threaten others when you are angry. Have been arrested or jailed because of your anger. Chapter 3. How to restrain yourself from an outburst. Everyone gets angry at times, but 1 in 5 Americans has an anger management problem. A person's anger may make them melt down in front of others and yell, scream, hit, or abuse others. This type of outburst is destructive anger at its most potent. It hurts you and it hurts others in physical, emotional, and social ways. If you have trouble restraining yourself from angry outbursts, you need to retrain yourself on how to handle challenging situations. This is the best way forward to a calmer life. Take notice of physical signs. When your body goes into stress mode, you will likely start to experience physical signs. These may include your jaws are clenched and your muscles tense. Your head or stomach hurts. Your heart starts racing. You sweat. Even the palms of your hands are sweaty. Your face flushes. Your body or your hands shake. You get dizzy. Take notice of emotional signs. Anger is often accompanied by a flood of other emotions. After all, the amygdala, the center for emotions, is pumping out signals with all its might to meet a threat and ensure your survival. It isn't surprising that you can get a flood of other related emotions. These emotions are capable of sounding the alarms for the fight and flight response. In addition to anger, some emotions you may feel include irritation, sadness, depression, guilt, resentment, anxiousness, defensiveness. Count to 10. If you feel yourself getting angry and are experiencing the symptoms of the anger listed above, you can tell yourself that you don't have to react right away. Counting can help you put off your feelings for the moment. It may feel a bit silly at first, but counting can really distract you long enough to calm down, hold off on reacting, and give yourself time to sort out your feelings. Try deep breathing. Try to give some space to yourself for a while. If you can, excuse yourself and go to the bathroom, a stairwell, or outside while you do this. And this will help you feel comfortable and to do deep breathing and to calm yourself down. Breathe in for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. And exhale for a count of 4. Make sure you are breathing with your diaphragm rather than with your chest. When you breathe with your diaphragm, your belly extends out. You can feel it with your hand. Do this as many times as necessary until you start feeling calmer. Repeat a calming word or phrase. Try saying something calming to yourself, such as, calm down, or relax, or take it easy. Repeat this phrase over and over until you feel your anger start to dissipate. Get a change of scenery. If you feel your blood boil, get out. Take a walk. Breathe deeply. If you are able to remove yourself from the situation, do it. By not having the thing or person that makes you mad in front of you, you can more easily calm down. Try progressive muscle relaxation. Progressive muscle relaxation is the process of tensing and relaxing your entire body in progressive stages. It is thought that by tensing your muscles yourself, you can release tension in your body. Here's an overview of this method. Breathe in for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4. Exhale for the count of 4. Keep breathing deeply. Start with the muscles in your head and face. Tighten as many muscles as you can in your face, head, mouth, and neck, and hold for 20 seconds. Then release. Then work your way down the body, tensing and releasing your shoulders, arms, back, only if you don't have back problems, hands, stomach, legs, feet, and toes. Now wiggle your toes around, feeling the relaxation from your toes to your head. Take a few more deep breaths and enjoy the feeling of relaxation. Find something humorous to enjoy. If you can get yourself laughing, you can change the chemical reaction in your body. You can use your brain and imagination to create all sorts of ridiculous situations that can get you laughing, especially if it isn't mean-spirited or sarcastic humor. For instance, say you're in a situation where your boss got mad at you about something. Instead of fuming about it at your desk, you can dissipate your own anger by imagining he has a fish head, and he was yelling through his fish mouth. It is important, however, not to laugh or smirk if you're still in a conversation with your boss. This could make things worse. You can even use this method if you lose your temper a lot. Using something to make you laugh will help you calm down for this moment. Then you can more effectively employ other methods, such as problem solving, to come up with a solution to the situation you're facing. Identifying the causes of your anger. Examine what else is happening in your life. We might feel angry when we have lack of control, whether it's physical or emotional. These common occurrences have all the potential to raise anger in people. Physical discomforts. Feeling tired, hungry, or in pain can make people angry and cranky. Going through the grieving process. Anger is a part of the grieving process. Dissatisfaction with your sex life, or your spouse is cheating on you. Other people's inconsiderate or rude behavior. Dealing with addiction and withdrawal. Medical reasons such as hormone fluctuations and illnesses. Having a mental disorder. Anger can be part of the symptoms for many disorders. Being in an unjust situation, such as being under the regime of an oppressive government or being subjected to discrimination. Being subjected to abusive situations, such as being bullied or humiliated. Stress from the daily grind, such as meeting deadlines, putting up with traffic, dealing with disappointing outcomes, or not meeting one's goals or expectations. Loss of money or income, such as getting robbed or having money problems. Rate your anger. Rating your anger can help you realize what type of events make you angry and the degree they make you angry. Some events may cause mild irritation, while others might trigger you wanting to blow your top. You don't really need an official anger scale. You can make your own, for instance, on a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 100. You can use what works for you. Also, you can track how often your anger spikes by writing down your anger rating in a journal. Keep an anger journal. An anger journal will help you keep track of what events anger you and the degree to which they anger you. You should also track the surrounding events and environments that preceded your anger or occurred during your anger. Take note of how you react when you're angry and the reactions of other people when you get angry. When you record in your journal, you can make the following observations. What provoked the anger? Rate your anger. What thoughts occurred as you got angry? How did you react? How did others react to you? What was your mood right before it happened? What symptoms of anger did you feel in your body? Did you want to leave, or did you want to act out, such as bang the door or hit something or someone, or did you say something sarcastic? What were your emotions immediately after the incident? What were your feelings a few hours after the episode? Was the episode resolved? Keeping track of this information will help you learn what situations and triggers your anger. Then you can avoid those situations when possible, or you can predict when these situations may occur if they are unavoidable. Identify your anger triggers. A trigger is something that happens, or that you experience that brings on an emotion or a memory. Some common triggers for anger are not being able to control other people's actions, other people disappointing you for not meeting your expectations, not being able to control daily life events, such as traffic or things that get in the way of your progress, someone trying to manipulate you or take advantage of you, getting mad at yourself for a mistake, being hungry, tired, or stressed. Chapter 4. Reaction or response. Which is more effective? Do you ever get so caught up in your busy schedules, worries, or problems that you lose sight of what's important to you and react poorly in a situation? It happens to all of us, but with a little effort, you can shift your ineffective reaction to an appropriate and more effective response. I would like to share a simple, but not that easy approach to give yourself some space between stimulus and response. The first step is to recognize that you were caught up in an emotion or situation. This is often the hardest step, especially if you haven't been practicing this exercise for long. You may tend to recognize that you are caught up in an emotion or crisis only after it is over, and you've already reacted. Other times, you may recognize the signs while still in the middle of the storm. If you are skilled at mindfulness, you may be able to see it as it begins. No matter when you catch yourself and realize that you are reacting to a difficult situation, proceed to the next step, even if it seems too late for this situation. The second step is to force yourself to pause and reflect on the moment and what's consuming you. This is also a difficult step, especially if we are experiencing a powerful emotion. If you are able to develop the self-control to pause, take a moment to examine the stimulus or situation and your natural reaction. Some of the questions you can ask yourself are, is this something in your control or influence? Is this situation or stimulus important enough to deserve a response? Is your behavior appropriate and helpful? Is the behavior of others in the situation appropriate? Is there an underlying insecurity that you or someone else is protecting? Are you responding in the best way to achieve your objectives? If you accomplish the first two steps, it gets easier from here. The third step is to reconnect with your objectives. What do you want out of the situation? Why is that outcome important to you? The final step is to respond. Is a response warranted at all? What is the best thing to do in the situation to be helpful or to move toward your objective? This sounds simple, but it isn't easy, and I'm certainly still a work in progress. I had a recent situation where a client lost their temper with her spouse and ruined a perfectly good relationship. They never got to step one of this list. If my client had, and they paused before they reacted, then they would have been able to think and see that anger was not the appropriate response at the moment. I waited and addressed the underlying issues later. If you handle a situation poorly, getting mad at yourself isn't productive. None of us are perfect, so don't beat yourself up when you make a mistake by reacting inappropriately. This respond, not react concept is not easy, and it's not useful to say over and over to yourself, I should have done XYZ, or I should have been more ZYX. Don't put should on yourself. It's not useful. If you missed an opportunity to respond, not react, simply note it. Note the consequences. Promise yourself to continue working on your steps and move on. The good news is that this simple process is actually just a mental skill. And like all skills, through neuroplasticity, it can be learned and improved. A regular meditation or mindfulness session is one option to improve this skill. Another is to notice and practice respond, not react opportunities in common situations you experience every day, such as when you are in traffic, in a checkout line, meetings at work, when your computer starts to run slow, when your kids or loved ones say something that causes an emotional response, etc. You have hundreds of opportunities each day to practice. If you mess one up, don't worry, you will have another opportunity soon. As you get better at responding to the minor inconveniences of the day, you will be better prepared to respond, not react, when the next high-stakes situation arrives. Don't just react. Choose your response. Between stimulus and response, there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. When faced with situations that pull for some particular reaction, we can choose to respond instead. If you struggle with certain aspects of yourself, consider finding your space to respond, rather than reacting, by doing the following. Consider the person you would like to be. Think about the person you would like to be, especially in the areas which you struggle. For instance, you may not like your tendency to become quickly frustrated in difficult situations, wanting instead to be a patient person. Take the time to develop a clear vision of this more ideal version of yourself. Think about the meaning or origin of your reactions. There is a reason that you react as you do. It can be very helpful to understand your reactions and perhaps even their origins. For instance, you might be impatient because you imagine failing to fix problems, and you experience great anxiety. You might also realize that your parents tended to be critical, leaving you to believe that you always fall short. Observe the outcome of your reactions. Pay close attention to the results of your reactions. By bringing negative consequences to your awareness, you will be more motivated to change your reaction to a desired response. With our example, you might note how your impatience makes it impossible for you to effectively solve problems. Imagine a better response. Think about better ways to respond. Imagine doing them and the consequences of this. Also, imagine what it would feel like to respond more in keeping with what you want for yourself. Continuing the example of a problem with impatience, you might envision yourself responding calmly to a problem, and then moving on to find your way to an effective solution. Learn a more compassionate approach to yourself. Because personal changes take effort and time to accomplish, it is important to support this process within yourself. Being critical will only undermine your efforts. So, instead, practice being understanding and patient with yourself, much as you would be supportive of a child or good friend who is working to develop a new skill. You very well may need to learn particular skills in making some changes. For instance, you might want to learn skills in assertiveness, anger management, socialization, or relaxation. Psychotherapy can also help you to relieve anxiety or depression, as well as address other personal struggles. Whatever your situation calls for, you will find creating space is an incredibly powerful part of becoming the person you aspire to be. Chapter 5. Developing Strategies for Handling Anger. Make an anger management plan. Following a plan will help you gain control over your anger at the moment. The key is to gain control of your body's response first. Once you do this, you can work out what is bothering you and why. When you understand this, you can assertively express yourself to make sure you are expressing your anger in a productive way. It takes lots of practice and patience to deal with your feelings in a new, constructive way. Have a specific set of actions in mind for when you feel angry. For example, once you recognize that you are feeling angry, step outside for 5 minutes. Take some deep breaths and repeat a calming phrase to yourself. This process will help you diffuse your anger. Avoid all or nothing thinking. When a person is angry, he may tend to think, everything's ruined, or I'll never be able to do that. This type of thinking reduces things to an all or nothing scenario because the person thinks that the problem is the end of the world. Avoid words and phrases that put situations in absolute terms. Stop framing things with always or never. Instead, think to yourself, this situation is frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. Avoid situations that make you angry. Oftentimes, you can avoid angry outbursts by avoiding the situation that makes you angry. For example, if you know that you get angry at the morning traffic, try to leave at a different time, or take public transit. If you know you get angry because you skipped lunch, be diligent about eating properly. Let go of resentment. When you harbor resentment against someone, your anger will only continue and become hard to control. Accept others for who they are. Focus on how you handle a situation rather than how someone else handles it. Letting go of resentment will help you refocus your energy on more positive things. Try exercising. Exercise can help dissipate anger. For adults and children, research shows that exercise helps with mood regulation and controlling emotions. Try exercising when you're in a mad moment, or use it daily to release aggression. Reset your emotions with a good night's sleep. Getting a good night's sleep helps people regulate their emotions. Emotions are harder to control when we don't get enough sleep. One study showed that with only a few nights of disrupted sleep for teenage girls, their negative feelings increased, as well as their anger. If you are having trouble sleeping on a consistent basis, you should see your doctor. Try meditation. Meditation has been shown to be effective in emotional regulation. It has a longer-lasting effect on the amygdala, the center for emotion and the part of the brain where the stress response begins after a stressful or threatening event has been perceived. Start with deep breathing. You can also combine breathing with visualization tasks. Try this visualization exercise. When you breathe in, envision a golden white light that relaxes you and makes you feel happy. Envision this white light spreading into your lungs and throughout your entire body. When you breathe out muddy, dark colors which represent your angry, stressful feelings. If you feel like you have trouble meditating, don't worry. Meditation is a combination of deep breathing exercises, visualization, and performing mental tasks. But if you feel like it's difficult for you to sit long enough to meditate, or if you feel uncomfortable meditating, you can just begin with simply deep breathing. This will still initiate your body's calming response. Don't get discouraged if you relapse. When people try something new, it doesn't always go perfectly. This can be true when you're learning new ways to deal with anger. The best way to deal with relapses and exploding with anger or reacting passive-aggressively is to look at what didn't work. It's part of the learning process. When you are able to look at what didn't work, you can adjust what you do for that anger trigger for the next time. Most of all, hang in there. Be happy for your smallest accomplishments, because each one of them is a step towards accomplishing your bigger goal, which is dealing with anger. Expressing anger in a healthy way. Focus on communicating assertively. Assertiveness communication emphasizes that both people in a conversation have important needs. To communicate assertively, give the facts without making accusations. For example, you might say, "I was hurt and angry because it seems like you were belittling my project when you laughed during my presentation. I don't know what was going on, but it seems like you weren't paying attention or taking my hard work seriously. I could have just misunderstood what was going on. Can we talk and work this out? Be respectful. Using please and thank you is not only polite, but it also shows respect for other people. Your communication should convey requests rather than demands. In order to get respect, you have to give it. Then you will foster cooperation and reciprocal respect. This is the opposite of what happens with anger, where aggressive, passive, or passive-aggressive communications puts others at odds with you. You can start your communications this way. When you have the time, could you, or it would be a great help if you, thanks, I appreciate it. Make communications clear. If you beat around the bush, or make general statements that are not specific, everyone involved will get frustrated. Instead, directly address the person you need to resolve your issue with. Make it clear what you would like to see happen. Be sure to put it in the form of a request. For instance, if your coworker is speaking very loudly on the phone and it's difficult for you to do your work, you can state your request like this. I have a request. Would you please lower the volume of your voice on the telephone? It's making it very difficult to concentrate on my work. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. If you had stated instead, it's really difficult to get my work done with all the noise in this office, to everyone in the room, it's not specific. Moreover, it will most likely alienate all of your coworkers, and you probably won't get your problem solved. Express your feelings well. When you figure out how you're feeling, convey the real feeling, like hurt, and keep judgment statements out of it. For example, this is not an assertive way to express yourself. I feel that you are an insensitive bore. That is a judgment against another person, and not a very nice one at that. Instead, stick to things that pertain to you. I feel that you are not being sensitive to my feelings when you read your paper instead of listening to what I'm trying to say. Aim for problem solving. Once you are able to recognize your anger triggers, you can slow down your anger and address anger-provoking thoughts. Then you will be able to shift your focus to problem solving. With problem solving, you are doing everything in your power to address the problem, figure out your own feelings regarding the situation, and express your feelings in a most productive way possible. For example, you might get angry because your child got bad grades on his report card. To avoid having an angry outburst at your child, you should try to problem solve. This will help you process through the situation. Work through your emotions by taking a few minutes to yourself, breathing deeply. As your head clears a bit, you can start thinking of solutions to this problem. You can strategize how you will talk to your child about his grades, emphasizing that you love him and support him. You can also think of solutions, such as getting him a tutor or enrolling him in a study skills class. Also, you may also have to accept the fact that sometimes there isn't a solution to the problem at hand. This is okay, because not everything in life can be tied up in a package with a neat little bow. Life's a lot uncertain than that. You can't control life, but you can control how you react towards it. Getting professional help. Enroll in an anger management program. Fortunately, anger management programs have been shown to have a high rate of success. The most successful programs help you understand your anger, give you short-term strategies to deal with your anger, and help you build skills. There are a wide variety of options for anger management programs. For example, there are anger management programs available for teens, executives, police officers, and other populations of people who might be experiencing different types of anger for different reasons. Try therapy. Therapy is a great way to find new ways of dealing and expressing anger. You can take your anger journal, for instance, and bring it to therapy with you. Your therapist will most likely use relaxation techniques to help you calm down in the middle of an anger episode. Your therapist will also help you deal with the thoughts that can trigger anger, and find new ways to view your situations, as well as help you with emotional coping skills and assertiveness communication training. You may choose to see a psychotherapist who specializes in a person's history to resolve problems today, such as overcoming an abusive or neglectful childhood or overcoming a tragic event. This can be very helpful in dealing with anger from past events. Find a therapist in your area by using the American Psychological Association Psychologist Locator, and if you have a busy schedule, you can try online therapy. Ask your doctor about medication. Anger is often part of a different disorder, such as bipolar disorder, depression, or anxiety. Medication therapy for anger will depend on the condition with which the anger is occurring. Taking the medications for the disorder could help the anger as well. For example, if the anger is occurring with depression, anger could be treated along with other depression symptoms with antidepressants. If irritability is occurring as a part of a generalized anxiety disorder, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs, such as Lexapro or Prozac, might be used to treat the disorder. In the meantime, these medications can help with your irritability. Each medication has side effects. For example, lithium is used to treat bipolar disorder. It has a very high rate of renal, kidney complications. Being aware of the possible side effects will help you monitor for complications. It's very important to discuss these possibilities openly with your doctor. Be sure to talk about any addiction problems you have with your doctor. The last thing you need when you are struggling with alcohol is to add another addiction. This should be discussed candidly with your doctor to help them decide the best medication to treat your anger and any other symptoms you may be having. Chapter 6. Are you managing your anger, or is it controlling you? Anger is a normal part of human emotion, whether as a reaction to a threat, injustice, or simply being hurt as part of someone's thoughtlessness. We may experience it as a momentary reaction, as more intense rage or persisting anger about an ongoing situation or even a single event. It comes out of your self-preservation instincts. The experience of anger can convey a simple message that something is wrong or threatening. Usually, the emotion of anger itself is a perfectly normal part of being human. The bigger problem is that not all people deal with anger in a constructive or rational manner. When this happens, behaviors can become destructive, both in the short and long run. When out of control, it can cause problems in relationships, at home, work, and impact negatively on marriage, work advancement, and even lead to legal problems. Unfortunately, some people's lives spin out of control because anger is controlling them. Expressing anger. Anger may come on slowly or quickly, but usually triggers our fight or flight system in terms of raising our heart rate, increasing our focus, and releasing hormones such as adrenaline. In short, our bodies receive a call to action. This is part of our survival instinct, and usually settles down after the threat is gone or after we have removed ourselves from the situation. The fight or flight response is designed for immediate survival. When someone has an unusually low threshold for anger or cannot let go of anger, they may be constantly on edge and overreacting to what they may see as new threats. This may lead to a constant state of agitation, which results in problems with others as well as personal problems with depression, stress, and increased risk for hypertension and heart attacks. Anger problems sometimes become complicated by efforts to self-medicate with alcohol, a substance that usually leads to even worse anger control. While we may all get angry, people who cannot let go of anger may become angry people. What are appropriate ways of dealing with and expressing anger? Often, one of the keys to keeping anger under control is to recognize that anger is usually a reaction. Good communication can often be the key to dealing with a situation or to clearing up a misunderstanding. A problematic situation is more likely to result in a cooperative solution if one controls anger in a way that does not provoke a counterattack. Respectful communication and good problem solving can also avoid negative personal consequences for unacceptable angry, aggressive behavior. Psychologists use terms such as aggressive, passive, and assertive to describe certain interactions and communications between people. Simply put, aggressive behavior is threatening, does not respect others' rights, and usually ends up producing negative consequences or an aggressive response in return. Passive behavior means allowing one's own rights to be violated. While there is definite wisdom in picking your battles, this can lead to resentment and allows anger to grow if it is a situation or problem that must be addressed. Assertive behavior is simply described as being able to communicate one's needs, limits, or opinions in a manner that maintains respect for the rights of others and the rights of others to disagree. Assertive communication means being able to clearly put your concerns, needs, or complaint into words and expressing your wishes about the situation without hurting others and without being pushy or demanding. Sometimes, redirecting some of the energy that comes along with anger in a productive instead of destructive way helps keep anger under control while preventing the buildup of resentment. This may get involved in education of others, establishing a committee or work group to study a particular problem, or sometimes even just blowing off some steam in healthy ways by exercising, or by getting a sense of satisfaction, and a better sense of control by getting some things done. Most inappropriate expressions of anger occur because we are reacting to our physical response created by our instinct and have not allowed the thinking part of our human nature to fully engage. Often we can respond better by gaining control of our own thoughts and bodily reactions first. Not crowding, example, giving space, lowering your voice, speaking slower, breathing calmly, slowing down your speech, and relaxing your hands and muscles can be helpful in avoiding poorly controlled response to a situation that may make you angry. Allow time and create distance if necessary until you can respond in a calm manner. What is the goal of anger management? The goal of anger management is to learn how to react to situations in an assertive manner, which allows you to stand up for yourself and to be able to communicate your concerns or needs without threatening, intimidating, or violating the rights of others. This usually involves learning to control that instinctual fight or flight reaction and learning to communicate your limits, needs, feelings, and concerns in a constructive way. Is my anger out of control? While psychological tests sometimes help answer this question, it can usually be answered by taking an honest look at yourself and listening to what others close to you might think. You may be receiving warnings, experiencing road rage, excessive impatience in line, lashing out at strangers, intimidating coworkers, experiencing marital problems, losing friendships, or experiencing avoidance by other people. You may be surprising or even frightening yourself with your reactions. For some people, this may be an ongoing problem, just due to their physical makeup, excessive demands on themselves or others, low tolerance for frustration, or lack of flexibility. Some people learn to act in angry ways to protect themselves at an early age, or learn to act this way by growing up in chaotic or difficult situations. For others, anger management difficulties may be brought on by various types of stress or even depression, excess anxiety, or medical condition. Do you need counseling? If you are being surprised at the level of your anger, or it is interfering with your work, advancement, marriage, or friendships, there is a good chance your anger is out of control. Talking to a counselor or psychologist for an assessment and help learning anger management skills would likely be helpful. Many communities have specialized anger management groups when anger problems have contributed to domestic violence. Chapter 7. Learn to control your anger before it controls you. Anger is an emotion, and like all emotions, anger is energy in motion. I'm sure you have felt how your body becomes filled with energy when you become angry. It's as if a fire suddenly turned the engine on. Suddenly, you feel like you have the energy to kick, punch, and scream at the top of your lungs. That's all very normal, because when we feel angry, our body goes through some psychological as well as some biological changes. Heartbeat increases, blood pressure increases, energy hormones, adrenaline, and noradrenaline increase. Since anger is energy in motion, this energy needs to find its way out of our bodies. Usually people choose to deal with anger in one of three ways: expression, repression, calming down, expression of anger. The expression of anger can happen in two different ways. You could express anger in an aggressive way or in a firm, non-aggressive manner. Of those two, the latter is the healthiest choice. Many outbursts of anger happen because the person doesn't know how to express him or herself, and thus shuts down and reacts either physically or verbally aggressive. So how can you learn to express your anger in a positive, affirming, non-violent manner? Here are a few ideas. Give yourself some time before you respond. The old count to 10 advice is actually very helpful. Give yourself some space between you and your anger so that you can know how to answer appropriately. Try to find what the real cause of your anger is. Speak slowly. Think thoroughly before you speak. Start your sentences with, "I'm mad because," or "I feel," insert emotion here, "because." Be patient. Ask questions to get to the root of the problem. Listen to what the other person has to say. Some fights or arguments happen due to misunderstandings. Give the other person a chance to explain him or herself, and give you some time to decide whether you wish to believe what the other person is saying. Be confident, never sarcastic or aggressive. Repressing anger. A lot of people choose to repress the anger, either because they don't know how to express it correctly, or because they have been taught that expressing anger is wrong. However, the results of keeping anger inside can be pretty dire. Accumulated anger can lead to hypertension, self-harming behavior, depression, anxiety, gastrointestinal problems, severe and frequent headaches. Calming down. If you're able to calm down and really monitor your external as well as your internal response, well then, that's just awesome. Ideally, we should strive for this kind of behavior in which we choose to redirect or even change our anger into more positive emotions. It's not that we don't feel anger. It's that we choose and know how to put that energy to better use. Remember, our body is trying to get rid of all that energy that the hormones are providing it with. Some people choose to exercise or to focus all that energy in a hobby or any other activity that completely grabs their attention. Calming down is excellent for your body, but it could have a downside. If you don't speak about what's making you angry, sometimes the annoyance or abusive behavior could continue. Therefore, even if you know how to calm down and redirect your energy, it would still be helpful to learn how to express yourself assertively to stop the anger-causing behavior. Other ideas to control your anger. Keep a diary. Create an entry in your diary every time you get mad and answer these questions. Why did I get mad? Why do I think that happened? What did the other person do? Why do I think she or he did it? What do I think of that person? What do I think of myself? Also, write how you have expressed your anger in the past and how you think you could improve. There are some situations that you will not be able to avoid regardless of how much you try. Write what would be the best responses whenever an unavoidable situation arises. Write everything that comes to your head. Don't filter it. The more you write, the easier it will be to spot your exact anger triggers. Talk to someone. Sometimes you need to vent and let all that emotion out. Call or visit someone that you know will listen. Don't go to someone that will just further your anger. Forgive. We are all imperfect, and it's unrealistic to expect that everyone should behave exactly as we expect them to do. Maybe along the process we might realize that we were at fault as well. Write down your emotions. Find new and positive ways to deal with your anger and the source of your anger. Repeat calming affirmations. Choose a sentence that helps you relax and remain focused, and say it over and over to yourself. You may choose affirmations such as, "I'm angry, but I can control it." Breathing exercises. Sit down with your back straight. Close your eyes. Place your hand on your stomach. Breathe with your stomach, and feel your hand elevate each time you breathe. Focus solely on your breathing. Do this until you feel relaxed. Change your environment. Once you have identified the people and places that trigger your anger, avoid them as much as possible. There are some people that are toxic to our well-being, and regardless of how much we try to understand them, they will always irritate us. Identify these people and stay away from them as much as possible. You don't have to be rude to them, but you also don't have to be their friend. Don't think in terms of winning or losing. Sometimes we become even more agitated because we think we lost an argument and the other person went home victorious. The only person that loses is the one that lets anger affect their well-being. Place yourself in the other person's shoes. How would you have reacted if you were the other person? How did your actions or reactions affect the other person's reaction? Analyze this as objectively as possible. Humor. Try to see the humor in the situation. Sometimes this might be extremely difficult, but try. It's hard to stay mad and angry when you're busy smiling and laughing. Keep your emotional and physical health. Learn how to control your anger and live happily. Chapter 8. Tips and techniques for getting your anger under control. Anger is a normal, healthy emotion. But it's unhealthy when it flares up all the time or spirals out of control. Chronic, explosive anger has serious consequences for your relationships, your health, and your state of mind. The good news is that getting anger under control is easier than you think. With insight about the real reasons for your anger and these anger management tools, you can learn to keep your temper from hijacking your life. Why is anger something you need to control, but not crush? The emotion of anger is neither good nor bad. Like any emotion, it's conveying a message, telling you that a situation is upsetting, or unjust, or threatening. If your knee-jerk reaction to anger is to explode, however, that message never has a chance to be conveyed. So, while it's perfectly normal to feel angry when you've been mistreated or wronged, anger becomes a problem when you express it in a way that harms yourself or others. If you have a hot temper, you may feel like it's out of your hands, and there's little you can do to tame the beast. But you have more control over your anger than you think. You can learn to express your emotions without hurting others. Myths and facts about anger. Myth: I shouldn't hold in my anger. It's healthy to vent and let it out. Fact: while it's true that suppressing and ignoring anger is unhealthy, venting is no better. Anger is not something you have to let out in an aggressive way in order to avoid blowing up. In fact, outbursts and rants only fuel the fire and reinforce your anger problem. Myth: Anger, aggression, and intimidation help me earn respect, and I get what I want. Fact: respect doesn't come from bullying others. People may be afraid of you, but they won't respect you if you can't control yourself or handle opposing viewpoints. Others will be more willing to listen to you and accommodate your needs if you communicate in a respectful way. Myth: I can't help myself. Anger isn't something you can control. Fact: you can't always control the situation you're in or how it makes you feel, but you can control how you express your anger, and you can express your anger without being verbally or physically abusive. Even if someone is pushing your buttons, you always have a choice about how to respond. How anger management can help you. You might think that venting your anger is healthy, that the people around you are too sensitive, that your anger is justified, or that you need to show your fury to get respect. But the truth is that anger is much more likely to damage your relationships, impair your judgment, get in the way of success, and have a negative impact on the way people see you. That's where anger management comes in. The goal of anger management. Many people think that anger management is about learning to suppress your anger. But never getting angry is not a good goal. Anger is normal, and it will come out regardless of how hard you try to tame it down. The true goal of anger management isn't to suppress feelings of anger, but rather to understand the message behind the emotion and express it in a healthy way without losing control. When you do, you'll not only feel better, you'll also be more likely to get your needs met, be better able to manage conflict in your life, and strengthen your relationships. Mastering the art of anger management takes work, but the more you practice, the easier it will get. And the payoff is huge. Learning to control your anger and expressing it appropriately will help you build better relationships, achieve your goals, and lead a healthier, more satisfying life. The consequences of out-of-control anger. Out-of-control anger hurts your physical health. Constantly operating at high levels of stress and anger makes you more susceptible to heart disease, diabetes, a weakened immune system, insomnia, and high blood pressure. Out-of-control anger hurts your mental health. Chronic anger consumes huge amounts of mental energy and clouds your thinking, making it harder to concentrate or enjoy life. It can also lead to stress, depression, and other mental health problems. Out-of-control anger hurts your career. Constructive criticism, creative differences, and heated debate can be healthy. But lashing out only alienates your colleagues, supervisors, or clients and erodes their respect. Out-of-control anger hurts your relationships with others. It causes lasting scars in the people you love most and gets in the way of friendships and work relationships. Explosive anger makes it hard for others to trust you, speak honestly, or feel comfortable, and is especially damaging to children. Explore what's really behind your anger. Anger problems often stem from what you've learned as a child. If you watched others in your family scream, hit each other, or throw things, you might think this is how anger is supposed to be expressed. Traumatic events and high levels of stress can make you more susceptible to anger as well. Anger is often a cover-up for other feelings. In order to express your anger in appropriate ways, you need to be in touch with what you are really feeling. Is your anger masking other feelings such as embarrassment, insecurity, hurt, shame, or vulnerability? If your knee-jerk response in many situations is anger, it's likely that your temper is covering up your true feelings. This is especially likely if you grew up in a family where expressing feelings was strongly discouraged. As an adult, you may have a hard time acknowledging feelings other than anger. Anger can also be a symptom of underlying health problems, such as depression, trauma, or chronic stress. Clues that there's more to your anger than meets the eye. You have a hard time compromising. Is it hard for you to understand other people's point of view, or even harder to concede a point? If you grew up in a family where anger was out of control, you may remember how the angry person got his or her way by being the loudest and most demanding. Compromising might bring up scary feelings of failure and vulnerability. You have trouble expressing emotions other than anger. Do you pride yourself on being tough and in control? Do you feel that emotions like fear, guilt, or shame don't apply to you? Everyone has these emotions, so you may be using anger as a cover for them. You view different opinions as a personal challenge. Do you believe that your way is always right and get angry when others disagree? If you have a strong need to be in control or a fragile ego, you may interrupt other perspectives as a challenge to your authority, rather than simply a different way of looking at things. Be aware of your anger warning signs and triggers. While you might feel that you just explode into anger without warning, in fact, there are physical warning signs in your body. Anger is a normal physical response. It fuels the fight or flight system of the body, and the angrier you get, the more your body goes into overdrive. Becoming aware of your own personal signs that your temper is starting to boil allows you to take steps to manage your anger before it gets out of control. Pay attention to the way anger feels in your body, such as knots in your stomach, clenching your hands or jaw, feeling clammy or flushed, breathing faster, headaches, pacing or needing to walk around, seeing red, having trouble concentrating, pounding heart, tensing your shoulders. Identify the negative thought patterns that trigger your temper. You may think that external things from insensitive actions of other people, for example, or frustrating situations are what cause your anger. But anger problems have less to do with what happens to you than how you interpret and think about what happened. Common negative thinking patterns that trigger and fuel anger include overgeneralizing. For example, you always interrupt me. You never consider my needs. Everyone disrespects me. I never get the credit I deserve. Obsessing on shoulds and musts. Having a rigid view of the way things should or must be, and getting angry when reality doesn't line up with this vision. Mind reading and jumping to conclusions. Assuming you know what someone else is thinking or feeling that he or she intentionally upset you, ignored your wishes, or disrespected you. Collecting straws. Looking for things to get upset about, usually while overlooking or blowing past anything positive. Letting these small irritations build and build until you reach the final straw and explode, often over something relatively minor. Blaming. When anything bad happens or something goes wrong, it's always someone else's fault. You blame others for the things that happen to you rather than taking responsibility for your own life. Avoid people, places, and situations that bring out your worst. Stressful events don't excuse anger, but understanding how these events affect you can help you take control of your environment and avoid unnecessary aggravation. Look at your regular routine and try to identify activities, times of day, people, places, or situations that trigger irritable or angry feelings. Maybe you get in a fight every time you go out for drinks with a certain group of friends. Or maybe the traffic on your daily commute drives you crazy. Then think about ways to avoid these triggers or view the situation differently so it doesn't make your blood boil. Learn ways to cool down. Once you know how to recognize the warning signs that your temper is rising and anticipate your triggers, you can act quickly to deal with your anger before it spins out of control. There are many techniques that can help you cool down and keep your anger in check. Quick tips for cooling down. Focus on the physical sensations of anger. While it may seem counterintuitive, Tuning into the way your body feels when you're angry often lessens the emotional intensity of your anger. Take some deep breaths. Deep, slow breathing helps counteract rising tension. The key is to breathe deeply from the abdomen, getting as much fresh air as possible into your lungs. Exercise. A brisk walk around the block is a great idea. It releases build-up energy so you can approach the situation with a cooler head. Use your senses. Take advantage of the relaxing power of your sense of sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste. You might try listening to music or picture yourself in a favorite place. Stretch or massage areas of tension. Roll your shoulders if you are tensing them, or gently massage your neck and scalp. Slowly count to 10. Focus on the counting to let your rational mind catch up with your feelings. If you still feel out of control by the time you reach 10, start counting again. Give yourself a reality check. When you start getting upset about something, take a moment to think about the situation. Ask yourself, how important is it in the grand scheme of things? Is it really worth getting angry about it? Is it worth ruining the rest of my day? Is my response appropriate to the situation? Is there anything I can do about it? Is taking action worth my time? Find healthier ways to express your anger. If you decided that the situation is worth getting angry about, and there's something you can do to make it better, the key is to express your feelings in a healthy way. When communicated respectfully and channeled effectively, anger can be a tremendous source of energy and inspiration for change. Pinpoint what you're really angry about. Have you ever gotten into an argument over something silly? Big fights often happen over something small, like a dish left out or being 10 minutes late. But there's usually a bigger issue behind it. If you find your irritation and anger rapidly rising, ask yourself, what am I really angry about? Identifying the real source of frustration will help you communicate your anger better, take constructive action, and work towards a resolution. Take 5 if things get too heated. If your anger seems to be spiraling out of control, remove yourself from the situation for a few minutes, or for as long as it takes you to cool down. A brisk walk, a trip to the gym, or a few minutes listening to some music should allow you to calm down, release build-up emotion, and then approach the situation with a cooler head. Always fight fair. It's okay to be upset at someone, but if you don't fight fair, the relationship will quickly break down. Fighting fair allows you to express your own needs while still respecting others. Make the relationship your priority. Maintaining and strengthening the relationship, rather than winning the argument, should always be your first priority. Be respectful of the other person and his or her viewpoint. Focus on the present. Once you are in the heat of arguing, it's easy to start throwing past grievances into the mix. Rather than looking to the past and assigning blame, focus on what you can do in the present to solve the problem. Choose your battles. Conflicts can be draining, so it's important to consider whether the issue is really worthy of your time and energy. If you pick your battles rather than fighting over every little thing, others will take you seriously when you are upset. Be willing to forgive. Resolving conflict is impossible if you're unwilling or unable to forgive. Resolution lies in releasing the urge to punish, which can never compensate for our losses, and only adds to our injury by furthering depleting and draining our lives. Know when to let something go. If you can't come to an agreement, agree to disagree. It takes 2 people to keep an argument going. If a conflict is going nowhere, you can choose to disengage and move on. 5 tips for dealing with a loved one's anger management problem. While you can't control another person's anger, you can control how you respond to it. Set clear boundaries about what you will and will not tolerate. Wait for a time when you are both calm to talk to your loved one about the anger problem. Don't bring it up when either of you is already angry. Remove yourself from the situation if your loved one does not calm down. Consider counseling or therapy if you are having a hard time standing up for yourself. Put your safety first. If you feel unsafe or threatened in any way, get away from your loved one. Chapter 9. How to respond to angry people. Agree with it. You can choose to agree with the feelings, not the facts. Agree that he feels the way he feels. You can say, "It's awful, isn't it?" Or, "I don't blame you for being angry." You are not agreeing that him or her is right in their facts. You are just letting him or her know that you heard what they said. You are merely agreeing that he said it. This is not pleasing or giving him the satisfaction. It is taking the wind out of his sails. You are depriving him or her of a target. He will go find another victim. You're no fun anymore. Do the unexpected. As you replace your childhood beliefs of control with mature ones in the present, your anxiety level comes down. You are freeing yourself of your own inappropriate attitudes as they rise up, and choose to operate out of your civilized judgment. You are freeing yourself doing the last thing he or she expects you to do. This includes agreeing that he or she feels the way he or she feels. I don't blame you for being angry. He can't fight that. If he tries, you can agree with that too. You are not agreeing that he is right in his facts, merely that he feels the way he feels at the time. You can't talk him out of his non-rational feelings and attitudes. It is a mistake to try. Why is a spider scary? Some scream and recoil. Others grab a tissue and go squish. I don't have to agree a spider is scary to understand how painful fear is. By agreeing with feelings, not the facts, you're doing the unexpected. You agree it's painful and that his pain hurts. Validate the anger. You can use the word angry in a sentence. I don't blame you for being angry. Or, I'd be angry too if I thought. You are not a threat or his enemy. You are on his side. When you validate his anger, you are validating him. You are giving him permission to have the emotions he has. No one has ever done that for him before. He might like it. He might even calm down. Shift your gears. You can choose to calm yourself down and put your own anger in a moderate, manageable perspective. Just because he said it doesn't make it literally true. It's how he feels in the present. It's not a fact or the end of the world. It's only a regrettable circumstance between two imperfect people in an imperfect world. Express appropriate regret that it happened. You can choose to replace your old mindset with a better one. Regret is the wish that things were other than they are, but they aren't. This thing happened, and it's regrettable. We can live with the regret that we are less than perfect. Saying, "I'm sorry that it happened," is a statement of regret. Like when someone passes away, we say, "I'm sorry for your loss." This doesn't mean we take ownership over causing their loss, but it means we regret their pain. It's a sign of personal strength and self-respect. Do not defend. As soon as you defend, you lose. In so doing, you are making his or her accusations real, as if they were worthy of rebuttal. Your imperfections are not crimes. You are not a guilty criminal worthy of punishment. He is not the judge and jury. You can replace your guilt with a regret that you aren't perfect. You require no defense under these battlefield conditions. Don't give him or her one. Instead, you can validate their concern. "Don't you hate it when this happens?" Or, "It's just awful." Your response doesn't have to be literally true. He doesn't care. You're setting a limit. You avoided stepping on his or her provocative landmine. You didn't give him a target for his childish rage. He will have to find himself another victim. He may even be secretly glad that you saved him from himself this time. You are setting an example of self-respect for him to see and follow for the first time in his life. He just might follow it. Chapter 10. How to respond to your child or teen's anger. Everyone gets mad sometimes, children and adults alike. Anger is an emotion that can range from slightly irritated to moderately angry, all the way to full-blown rage. A child's anger often makes us feel uncomfortable, so there can be a natural way to try and change the situation for your child, so the anger will evaporate. Or on the flip side, it's easy to fall into the trap of bringing down the hammer to put a stop to the anger through intimidation or punishment. But the fact is, your child will experience situations that may trigger anger throughout life. You can't stop the triggers, but you can give your child the tools to understand anger and deal with it. Parents often express concern about a child's anger in two areas: the intensity and the speed of escalation. The intensity of a child's anger is typically tied to the thoughts he or she is having about any situation. For instance, most people who sit down to a bowl of cereal in the morning to find there is no milk are mildly irritated. Great, now I can't have cereal. But some people get very angry about triggers that would be mild to others. Why? Often underneath, there is a thought pattern, a script, that is triggered. Some people think, great, whoever used up all the milk this morning is completely inconsiderate. I don't have time for this. They take things personally. Kids who are oppositional, defiant, or who have trouble controlling impulses often lose their tempers in a way others don't understand. Johnny's mom shared, "I just don't understand why he gets so mad, so fast, over nothing. It can be as simple as asking if he has homework or requesting that he put his backpack away. No matter how nicely I say it, he takes it as a criticism and starts yelling." That's because Johnny sees almost everything his mom says as an effort to control him. Kids who are diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, will fight against being controlled even in the smallest way. Intermittent explosive disorder, or IED, is another diagnosis parents may hear from mental health professionals. It means a child, or adult, is having episodes of intense rage that result in behavior such as screaming, throwing, or breaking things, and aggression towards others. This is a diagnosis that describes episodes of anger that come and go, intermittent, and are intense or severe, explosive. The episode may appear to come out of nowhere, and the individual has difficulty managing the intense emotion. Responding to anger. So what can parents do when faced with a supernova explosion of anger? Here are some tips. Number 1. Don't try to control your child's emotions. You can't, and that's okay. You cannot expect someone to control their emotions. You can only ask them to control their behavior. It's okay for a child to be angry, as long as that anger is expressed appropriately. It's a clue for her, and you, that she's not comfortable with the situation. Number 2. Control your own emotions. A child's rage will often trigger a parent's own emotions. How do you usually handle it when people are angry? Some people are very uncomfortable with anger. It makes them anxious or fearful. If you grew up in a home where anger meant shouting and danger, your child's anger may push some of your emotional buttons. If you aren't aware of your own issues, you could respond in ways that are actually a disservice to your child, such as giving in to what they want or yelling back. If you start experiencing intense emotion yourself, take a breath and a mental step back. One trick is to picture your child as a neighbor's kid. This can give you a little emotional distance. Number 3. Make sure your responses don't escalate the situation. Just because you choose not to argue with your child doesn't mean you're giving in. If your child needs some space to cool down, give it to him. If he's screaming at you, it's okay to wait to give a consequence. The time to say, "That's disrespectful, you're grounded," is not in the middle of an emotional tornado. You can always hold your child accountable later when things are calmer. Number 4, help your child recognize when anger is building. There are physical signs of anger that your child can start to tune into. Stomach clenching, a feeling of tension, feeling flushed, clenching teeth. Sometimes when we're angry, we actually hold our breath without realizing it. If your child can notice these signs early on, it can keep anger from escalating to rage. An ounce of prevention really can be worth a pound of cure. Number 5, brainstorm with your child. Many kids will experience or express true remorse after having an emotional meltdown. After screaming and throwing things, one teenager told his mom, "I'm so sorry. I don't know why I do these things. There must be something wrong with me." If he's open to talking and willing to learn anger management skills, you can help him work backwards from the incident. What happened right before the rage was triggered? What was said? What was he feeling? Embarrassment, frustration, disappointment, fear, anxiety? There is always another emotion underneath the anger. Learning to recognize underlying emotions is a powerful tool your child can use throughout life. A word of caution: many kids, particularly those with oppositional defiant disorder, are not willing or trusting enough to explore this with a parent or a therapist. If you make an effort to brainstorm solutions and he resists, drop the subject and see if you can come back to it at another time. Number 6, remember that emotion is different from behavior. The problem isn't the anger, it's the behavior that follows. You can validate your child's emotions while addressing the behavior that is a concern. I understand you were angry when I said you couldn't go to your friend's house. Sometimes there will be rules or limits that may frustrate you, but breaking things won't change that rule or limit and will only end in a consequence for that behavior. Then help your child identify more positive ways he can express his emotions. Minimize contributing factors. The way your child perceives a situation is at the heart of anger. However, you may want to keep a calendar on his or her mood if it seems things are escalating. Does she tend to be more irritable if she doesn't get enough sleep, skip meals, or has poor eating or snacking habits, or otherwise isn't feeling well physically? Adolescence is well known as a time for higher irritability for kids. This isn't an excuse for negative behavior, but it can explain why little things seem more irritating at different times. You may want to talk with your teen's primary care doctor if the onset of your child's anger seems to be connected to puberty. Anger versus rage. Some parents worry because a child's anger is beyond what they would consider typical. While it's true some children exhibit explosive rage, you can still use the suggestions above to de-escalate a situation. If your child's anger is extreme, you may want to seek counseling for him or her and as a family. Even if your child won't participate, you can go to get support by learning parenting skills. No matter what degree of anger your child exhibits, the fact is, he or she is still responsible for managing that emotion. And remember, it's a learning process. It doesn't happen overnight, but with support and encouragement, you can help your child continue to strengthen their coping skills. Chapter 11. Therapy for Anger Management. People who have an anger management problem often believe that the only way to control their anger is to avoid expressing it. Of course, it makes sense to avoid destructive outbursts of anger, but avoidance alone is not a sustainable, long-term way to effectively control anger, because it creates its own problems. The vicious cycle. You are afraid that, once you start feeling your anger, it will be impossible to control. As a result, you bottle up your anger, not expressing it, sometimes not even allowing yourself to feel it. The feelings stay bottled up, the pressure builds up, and then suddenly the volcano erupts. All kinds of bad consequences follow. For one, your behavior is hurtful to others, but it is also hurtful to yourself in many ways. Outbursts of anger are often counterproductive. People reject what you are asking for, at the same time as they reject the way you are asking for it. Or you get what you want, but at a cost. Outbursts of anger also give you a low opinion of yourself. You thought you could control your anger, and you find yourself controlled by it. All of this leaves you with a more intense sense of pressure, which fuels the vicious cycle. What can you do then if bottling up your anger is not a sustainable solution? You need to realize there is a big difference between experiencing anger and acting it out in rageful, destructive ways. The way to break this vicious cycle is to learn to recognize anger, as well as other difficult feelings, early on, and to develop appropriate ways to deal with these feelings. Understanding anger and emotions in general. To effectively deal with emotions, including anger, it helps to keep in mind what emotions are. All too often, people describe emotions as irrational, and believe because they are irrational, they can be simply dismissed by focusing on rational thinking. Emotions are irrational in the sense that they do not stem from the same mind processes as rational thinking. But emotions have their own logic, which is potentially more powerful than rational thinking. Emotions have been practiced through ages and ages of our evolutionary process. Fear and anger are the mechanism that allowed us to survive and thrive in the face of danger. Fear and anger are not just ideas. They are deep psychological reactions, similar to the fight-flight response we can observe in animals in the wild. Our organism gathers extreme levels of energy to enable us to fight or flee. At the same time, all non-essential functions shut down. For instance, the flow of blood and oxygen to the brain is sharply reduced. This is the psychological basis for the expression, blinded by anger. Being blinded by anger may seem stupid, but there is a profound logic in it, developed empirically through ages of evolution. Think of an animal being attacked. Its chances of survival are enhanced by its ability to focus its energy on fight or flight. A deer in the headlights is less likely to survive than one who jumps to one side or the other. So it helps to remember that even a reaction as apparently stupid as being blinded by anger has its own logic. It is a very logical response to the perception that we are under a major threat, a threat so dangerous that all our resources have to be mobilized to face it here and now, without any moment to waste. Of course, I am not justifying blind anger. Understanding what happens in anger will help you put your efforts where they can be effective, instead of pursuing approaches that are doomed because they fly in the face of deeply ingrained mechanisms. A proactive approach, changing the experience of anger. The ultimate goal, effectively controlling anger, means learning to calibrate how you express anger in a way that is appropriate to the situation. We're talking about calibrating, modulating, managing the expression of anger, but that is very hard to do when you are triggered. In the above section about understanding emotions, I described how the intensity of your reaction is related to how intensely threatening you perceive the situation to be. When you sense that you are facing a major threat, it's going to be difficult to will yourself to stay calm. Even if you manage to stay outwardly calm, pressure is going to build inside as you keep feeling under threat. So the focus of our work is going to be on changing the way you experience anger. We will go through a slow-motion replay of the difficult moments when you get angry. Together, we will go right into the eye of the storm. We will explore together what happens in a gentle, curious, and accepting way. We will be dealing with the difficult experiences in manageable amounts, so that progressive change is possible, and you develop confidence in your ability to confront triggers. we will be also paying attention to body awareness, the felt sense of what happens, because anger is not just an idea, it is an intense physiological experience. Paying attention to body sensation helps you feel grounded in the physical experience of being angry, as opposed to being blinded by anger. It allows you, over time, to renegotiate how you perceive the triggers that activate you, so that your nervous system is not in a state of intense activation. With a calmer nervous system, you are naturally able to modulate the expression of your anger in a way that is appropriate and effective. Change doesn't happen instantly. Success comes from both getting insights into what triggers you and practicing new habits. Supportive coaching helps you overcome the ups and downs that are a normal part of the process of change. As you stick with this process, you start noticing changes in the way you react to difficult situations. You notice that you can be effective without being destructive. In fact, much more so. And as you act differently, you experience yourself as a different person, the person you really want to be. Chapter 12. How to ensure that you keep your anger in check and improve your relationships. I was talking to a friend one day, and all of a sudden, I heard someone raising his voice. I turned to catch a glimpse of what was happening, and I discovered that he was actually addressing someone on the phone. Instantly, this set me thinking again about the many incidences I had witnessed in my lifetime, and the level at which anger has taken hold of many people's lives. They have a very sound reason to be angry, they claim, and even when it in turn results into violence, they feel like they have achieved what mega giants of our world today have achieved. I will share with you a few words why I feel that violence is not worth it, and how you can stay away from its elements if you follow this point I am sharing with you. I would like to ask you a simple question. Having unleashed your anger and consequent violence on a particular situation, how exactly did this make you feel by searching deep down within you? I would like you to take a few minutes to evaluate this, and when you have found an answer, you may continue reading. If you were able to come to a conclusion that this made you feel a lot better, I would like you to consider again what was the outcome of that outburst on the relationship that you have built over years, months, or weeks, as the case may be. On the other hand, if you felt that you really shouldn't have handled the situation the way you did, then you are well on your way to recovery, and for this, I must congratulate you because you are about to experience the best years of your relationships. I would like to encourage you to always use the rule of some minutes of silence before you respond to any situation. The first question you should ask yourself is, must I respond? If I must respond, then you should pause and find the right words to respond appropriately. If you do not have to respond, please keep quiet and let that moment pass till you feel you are a lot better, and then you may offer an appropriate response. You must also learn to resist the temptation of, I do not want to look like a fool. Now let me explain. Who exactly is controlling who when you apply the knee-jerk reaction to responses on diverse issues? The aftermath is that the fool that is being avoided is the fool that is being created when a response is gotten from you simply because of what someone said or what they did. Please remember that you do not necessarily need to respond to all things. And if you must respond, please respond carefully and how you would like to respond. Lastly, I would like to introduce you to a formula. I call this the OK formula. This formula simply uses the word OK when there is heated argument in any place and consequently agrees with the other party to avoid what may be coming next. So, next time when you are arguing with someone and you feel that it is getting slightly overboard, please just say, okay, and you could stop yourself from impending danger. If you are diligent enough to practice the few points I have highlighted above, you will experience better relationships, and even you will be amazed at how much you will improve. Conclusion. Thank you again for purchasing this book. Anger is a very strong natural emotion. Your psychological outlook changes when you get angry. Every day of our lives, you and I are presented with situations, circumstances, events, challenges, and conversations which will get a reaction from us, one way or the other. For some, this will produce an emotional, volatile, irrational, spontaneous, or even disastrous response, while for other people it will be a more measured, calm, considerate, and strategic response to what's happening in their world. Emotion is what drives us, but logic and intelligence are what should be steering us. You should change your environment as it contributes to your anger by causing irritation. When stress becomes more intense, you should leave for a few minutes to cool down. Good communication is one of the best ways for coping with anger. You will be able to listen well when you learn how to communicate well. Angry people tend to jump to conclusions and react excessively. This problem can be solved by slowing down and thinking about what you want to say. At the same time, listen carefully to what the other people are saying before responding to them. If you know how to control your anger, half the battle is won. With practice, you will surely be able to lead a life of calm and composure when you have your emotions under your control, and this will give a tremendous boost to your self-confidence.